The stars twinkled like distant jewels against the vast emptiness of space. The research vessel, Horizon, glided smoothly through the darkness, its engines humming with quiet power. Inside, Chief Medical Officer Alan Rogers stared out the viewport, sipping his morning coffee. His brown hair was neatly trimmed, his uniform crisp despite being on duty for 12 hours straight. Space had become routine for Alan. 4 years on deep space assignments had turned the once breathtaking view into just another workplace backdrop. He had joined Earth's Space Exploration Corps to see wonders and help people. Lately, though, it felt more like filing reports and treating minor injuries. "Looks like another quiet day," said Nurse Linda Hill as she organized medical supplies. She had been his right hand for 2 years now, reliable and quick thinking in emergencies. Not that they had many emergencies these days. Alan nodded and turned back to his computer screen. "Just how I like it. Quiet means everyone's healthy." The ship's intercom suddenly crackled to life, making both of them jump. Captain Olivia Bennett's voice filled the medical bay, tense and urgent. "All senior staff to the bridge immediately. We've picked up a distress signal." Alan's heart raced as he grabbed his medical kit. Emergency calls in deep space were rare and usually serious. He and Linda hurried through the ship's gleaming corridors, joining others rushing toward the bridge. The bridge buzzed with activity when they arrived. Captain Bennett stood at the center, her tall figure commanding attention. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her expression grave as she studied the main screen. The image showed a strange ship unlike anything Alan had ever seen. It looked like a massive crystal, with smooth, translucent surfaces that reflected light in rainbow patterns. Parts of it seemed to be pulsing with a fading blue glow. "What are we looking at, Captain?" Alan asked, stepping forward. Captain Bennett turned to the assembled crew. "That, Doctor, is a Zephyrian royal vessel. They're in trouble." A murmur spread through the bridge. Everyone knew about the Zephyrians, an advanced alien species that had been observing human expansion into space for decades without ever making direct contact. They were mysterious, powerful, and deliberately distant. "How do we know it's a distress call if they've never communicated with us before?" asked Security Officer Greg Martinez, his muscular frame tense with suspicion. "The signal is universal, radiation. Patterns indicating life support failure," replied Communications Officer Diane Wu. Her fingers moved quickly over her console. "It's basic space code, understood by all spacefaring races." Captain Bennett's voice cut through the chatter. "Regardless of our history with them, there are people dying on that ship. We have a duty to help." Greg frowned. "With all due respect, Captain, they could be luring us into a trap. The Zephyrians have technology far beyond ours." "I'm aware of the risks," Captain Bennett replied firmly, "but I'm not leaving anyone to die out there." She turned to the navigation officer. "Set a course to intercept. Medical, prepare for possible casualties. Security, assemble a boarding team." Alan felt a mix of fear and excitement rush through him. This was why he had joined the Corps, to make a difference. "We'll be ready, Captain." Back in the medical bay, Alan and Linda prepared emergency supplies, not knowing what to expect. They had studied alien biology during training, but Zephyrians were largely a mystery. "Do you think our treatments will even work on them?" Linda asked, packing oxygen supplies. Alan shook his head. "I don't know. Their biology might be completely different. We'll have to adapt quickly." 2 hours later, the Horizon pulled alongside the massive crystal ship. Up close, the damage was clearer. Parts of the vessel's surface were darkened, and the once bright glow was fading rapidly. "Scans show their life support systems are failing," Science Officer Kelly Wright reported. Her red hair framed a face, lined with concern as she studied her readings. "Atmosphere is depleting. Multiple life signs, but they're weak and growing weaker." Alan joined the boarding team in the airlock. He wore a standard spacesuit with extra medical equipment attached. Greg Martinez and his security team carried standard weapons, though the captain had ordered them to keep them holstered unless absolutely necessary. "Remember," Captain Bennett's voice came through their comms, "this is a rescue mission. First, peaceful contact with the Zephyrians. Let's make it count." The airlock cycled and they stepped through the connection tube into the alien vessel. The interior was even more stunning than the outside. Corridors made of the same crystal-like material, glowing with soft internal light. But the beauty was marred by emergency signs pulsing throughout the structure. "The air is thin, but breathable," Kelly said, checking her instruments. "Similar to Earth's composition, just lower oxygen levels. We can remove helmets if needed, but I recommend keeping them on." They moved deeper into the ship, finding the first Zephyrians collapsed in a wide chamber. The aliens were humanoid, but clearly not human. Their skin shimmered with iridescent blue scales that seemed to pulse with internal light. They had no hair, and their faces featured large, multifaceted eyes that reminded Alan of diamonds. Alan knelt beside one, scanning with his medical equipment. "They're alive, but barely. Some kind of respiratory distress." The team continued through the ship, finding more unconscious Zephyrians. The ship's design became more elaborate as they moved toward its center, with intricate crystal formations, and what appeared to be living plants integrated into the structure. Finally, they reached what seemed to be the ship's core, a large, domed chamber with a platform in the center. There, surrounded by what looked like guards in more elaborate attire, lay a figure whose clothing and ornaments clearly marked her as someone of importance. "I think that's their leader," Greg whispered, pointing to the ornate circlet on her head. Unlike the others, this Zephyrian was still conscious, though barely. Her eyes fluttered as she fought for breath. Her skin, which Alan guessed should be a vibrant blue based on the others, had faded to a dull gray. Alan rushed forward, medical scanner in hand. The readings confused him at first, then started to make sense as the computer analyzed the alien biology. "She's royalty," Kelly said, looking at symbols etched into the platform. "These markings indicate she's Princess Lyra, heir to the Zephyrian collective." The princess looked directly at Alan, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the lights of his medical equipment. She tried to speak, but could only manage a weak gasp. "Her respiratory system is shutting down," Alan reported, his mind racing through options. "The Zephyrians process oxygen differently than we do. It looks like they extract it through specialized membranes in their throat, not lungs like us." Just then, the last of the princess's guards collapsed around her. The ship gave a shudder and more lights dimmed. "We need to get her to our ship," Greg urged. Alan shook his head, checking his readings again. "We can't move her. Her system is too fragile. She needs oxygen now or she won't survive transport." He looked at the dying princess, then at his portable no oxygen equipment. Standard masks wouldn't work with her different physiology. They needed a solution, fast. As the ship trembled again, Alan made a decision that would change the course of human and Zephyrian relations forever. A decision born of medical duty and human compassion, yet one that would have consequences none of them could foresee. The ship trembled again. A distant explosion echoed through the crystal corridors. The beautiful vessel was dying alongside its royal passenger. "We're losing her," Alan said, his medical scanner showing the princess's vital signs dropping rapidly. He looked up at Kelly. "What do we know about their respiratory system? There must be something we can do." Kelly's fingers flew across her data pad. She had downloaded all available information about Zephyrians before they boarded. Most of it was observational data, collected from a distance over decades of careful study. "The Zephyrians don't breathe like we do," Kelly explained quickly. "They don't have lungs. Instead, they have specialized membranes in their throat that extract oxygen directly from the air." She pointed to faint blue lines visible on the princess's neck. "Those are the membranes. They're much more efficient than human lungs, but they need a specific mixture of gases." Greg looked around the chamber. "Can we repair their air system?" Kelly shook her head. "Not quickly enough. The damage is too extensive." Alan checked his portable oxygen unit. "Could we use this somehow?" "Pure oxygen might be too concentrated for her system," Kelly warned. "It could burn those membranes." The princess made a soft sound almost like a whimper. Her multifaceted eyes focused on Alan with surprising clarity despite her condition. One delicate, scaled hand lifted slightly, reaching toward him. "She's trying to communicate," Linda said softly. "Captain," Alan called over the comm link. Need options. The princess has minutes at most. We can't move her and our oxygen equipment isn't compatible with her physiology. Captain Bennett's voice came through, steady despite the tension. Right. Keep analyzing their database. There. Must be something about emergency procedures. Kelly nodded and began searching more frantically through the Zephyrian files they had accessed. Suddenly she gasped. I found something, she said, her voice rising with excitement. Their historical records mention a process called breath sharing. It's some kind of ceremonial practice, but it has a physiological basis. Explain, Alan urged, watching the princess's color fade further. According to this, Kelly continued, their throat membranes can extract oxygen directly from another species' exhalation. The carbon dioxide levels in our breath are much lower than in the ambient air, and the moisture content is perfect for their membranes. Greg frowned. You're saying someone needs to breathe for her? Not exactly for her, Kelly corrected, but near her. The membranes can pull oxygen from air that's been exhaled by another being. Alan looked at the dying princess, then at his team. A plan formed in his mind. Unconventional, perhaps even against protocol, but possibly their only option. Captain, he said over the comm, I need to try something unusual. Their records indicate a process called breath sharing that might save the princess. What does it involve? Captain Bennett asked. I'll need to remove my helmet and exhale air directly near her throat membranes, Alan explained. Kelly believes the princess can extract oxygen from my breath. A moment of silence passed before the captain responded. Is it dangerous to you? The atmosphere is thin but breathable for humans, Alan replied. I'll experience some discomfort, but nothing serious. And you're certain this will help her? Alan looked at Kelly, who nodded firmly. It's our best chance, Captain. Her system is shutting down. We have minutes, if that. Proceed with caution, Doctor, Captain Bennett finally said. But understand this is your call. No one will order you to remove your protection in an alien environment. Alan didn't hesitate. This was why he became a doctor, to save lives regardless of species. He reached up and unsealed his helmet, removing it completely. The ship's air felt thin in his lungs, and he had to breathe deeper than normal, but it was manageable. Greg stepped forward. I should do it, I'm security. No, Alan replied firmly. I'm the medical officer. I know how to control my breathing, for maximum effect. He knelt beside the princess, setting his medical scanner where he could see the readings. Her eyes, wide, multifaceted like diamonds, locked onto his. Despite the language barrier, Alan saw intelligence and fear in those alien eyes. I'm going to help you breathe, he said softly, knowing she couldn't understand his words, but hoping his intent was clear. He pointed to his mouth, then to her throat, and mimicked breathing. The princess blinked once, slowly, a gesture that somehow conveyed understanding. Carefully, Alan leaned closer until his face was inches from hers. He could see the delicate blue-tinged membranes pulsing weakly in her throat. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs completely, then slowly exhaled, directing the warm air across her throat. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the princess stiffened suddenly, her back arching slightly. The membranes in her throat fluttered, becoming more vibrant. The dull gray of her skin began to shimmer with faint blue light. It's working, Kelly whispered, watching the medical scanner. Her oxygen levels are rising. Alan continued the careful rhythm. Inhale deeply through his nose, exhale gently across her throat. Each breath seemed to bring more color back to the princess's skin. The blue shimmer spread, growing stronger with each passing moment. Linda watched the scanner. Heart rate stabilizing. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. The ship shuddered again around them. More warning lights flashed across the crystal walls. We need to move her soon, Greg warned. This whole place could come apart. Alan shook his head slightly, careful not to interrupt his breathing rhythm. Not yet. She's still too fragile. The princess's eyes never left Alan's face as he continued, sharing his breath. There was something new in her gaze now, not just fear but wonder. One delicate hand lifted slowly and came to rest lightly on Alan's wrist, her touch cool against his skin. In that moment, something passed between them, an understanding beyond words or species. Two beings, from worlds apart, connected by the most basic need of all living things: breath. 3 days passed since the rescue of Princess Lyra and the remaining Zephyrian crew. The Horizon had towed the damaged royal vessel to a stable orbit around a nearby uninhabited planet. Engineers from both ships worked together to repair the critical systems, communicating through a mix of gestures and simple drawings. Alan sat in the ship's observation lounge, watching the crystal vessel through the large viewport. Its blue glow had returned, pulsing with renewed energy. He rubbed his tired eyes. Since the rescue, he had barely slept, splitting his time between regular duties and checking on the princess. "You should rest," Captain Bennett said, sitting down across from him. She pushed a cup of coffee toward him. "Doctor's orders don't apply to the doctor himself, I see." Alan gave a tired smile. "I'm fine, just thinking." "About the princess?" He nodded. The memory of those moments, sharing his breath with the alien royal, stayed with him. Something had happened between them, something he couldn't explain in medical terms. "Any regrets about what you did?" Captain Bennett asked quietly. Alan shook his head firmly. "None. I'd do it again." The captain's communication device beeped. "Bennett here," she answered. "Captain," came Communications Officer Diane Wu's voice. "We're receiving a transmission from Earth. The United Planetary Council is calling an emergency session. They've heard about our contact with the Zephyrians." Alan's stomach tightened. News traveled fast, even across the vastness of space. While the crew of the Horizon saw his actions as heroic, he wasn't sure how Earth's government would view the situation. "Also," Diane continued, "the Zephyrian ship is requesting permission to send a shuttle to the Horizon. They say the High Commander wishes to speak with Dr. Rogers personally." Alan and Captain Bennett exchanged surprised looks. The High Commander, Princess Lyra's father and leader of the Zephyrian Collective, was known only through distant observations and rumors. "Permission granted," Captain Bennett replied. "Prepare our main conference room, full diplomatic protocol." She turned to Alan. "Looks like you're about to meet the family." 2 hours later, Alan stood nervously in the conference room alongside Captain Bennett and other senior officers. They all wore their formal uniforms, freshly pressed for the historic occasion. The ship's announcement system chimed. "Zephyrian shuttle has docked in Bay 2. Minutes later, the conference room doors slid open. First came 4 tall Zephyrians in ornate armor that shimmered with the same crystal-like material as their ship. They positioned themselves at the corners of the room, standing perfectly still. Then she entered. Princess Lyra, now fully recovered. Her skin glowed a vibrant blue, and she wore an elegant gown that seemed to flow like water around her slender form. Alan's breath caught in his throat. She was beautiful in an alien, otherworldly way that he hadn't fully appreciated during the emergency. Behind the princess came a taller, broader Zephyrian male whose scales had hints of green among the blue. A complex crown of crystal and metal rested on his head. This could only be High Commander Thalix. Captain Bennett stepped forward. "Welcome aboard the Horizon. I am Captain Olivia Bennett. On behalf of Earth and the United Planetary Council, we extend our friendship." A smaller Zephyrian stepped forward with what appeared to be a translation device. The High Commander spoke, his voice deep and melodic with sounds no human throat could make. The translator converted his words to English. "We thank you for saving my daughter and our people." The commander's translated words filled the room. "For generations we have observed humans from a distance, uncertain if closer contact would be beneficial. That question has now been answered through the actions of one of your kind." His multifaceted eyes, deeper blue than his daughter's, fixed on Alan. "You are the one called Alan Rogers?" Alan stepped forward, standing straight despite his nervousness. "Yes, High Commander." The tall alien studied him for a long moment. "Do you understand what you have done?" Alan hesitated. "I saved a life." That was my duty as a doctor. The High Commander made a sound that the translator didn't convert, perhaps a laugh or scoff. You have done far more, he replied. Among our people, to share breath is sacred. It is done only between those joined in lifelong bonds. You are now connected to the royal lineage in a way no outsider has ever been. A murmur spread through the human officers. Alan felt his face grow warm as he realized the implications. I didn't know, he said. I meant no disrespect to your customs. I only wanted to save the princess. Princess Lyra stepped forward then, raising a hand to silence her father. When she spoke, her voice was softer but held unmistakable authority. The translator conveyed her words. The human acted out of compassion, not knowledge. There can be no offense when the intention was life-giving. She turned to Alan, her diamond-like eyes reflecting the room's lights. You gave me breath when mine was fading. Such a gift cannot be measured in ordinary terms. Captain Bennett cleared her throat. Perhaps we should discuss the diplomatic implications of this oddest connection. The next few hours passed in tense discussion. Earth officials, joining via video link, argued about protocols and potential misunderstandings. Some saw opportunity in the unexpected bond, while others worried about alien influence. Through it all, Alan noticed Princess Lyra watching him. When there was a break in the formal talks, she approached him directly, her translator in hand. You look troubled, she said, her words flowing through the device. I'm sorry if I created problems for you, Alan replied. I didn't know about the cultural significance. The princess's scales shimmered as she tilted her head. Walk with me? They moved to a quieter corner of the room, away from the others. A Zephyrian guard followed at a respectful distance. The breath-sharing is not merely ceremonial, she explained. It creates a biological connection. My system is now partially attuned to yours. Alan's medical mind raced with the implications. What does that mean exactly? Your cells speak to mine now, she said, touching her throat where the membranes had absorbed his breath. This is why only bondmates share breath among my people. It creates a lasting link. A permanent link? Alan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The princess's eyes seemed to smile, though her face didn't change expression in a human way, not in the way you fear. But there is a connection that was not there before. I can sense your presence now, even from a distance. Alan didn't know how to respond. His medical training had never prepared him for this kind of first contact situation. He found himself caught between two worlds, his human understanding and the alien customs he was only beginning to comprehend. A week passed since the first official meeting between humans and Zephyrians. The horizon had become the center of a new era in interspecies relations. Every day, shuttles arrived bringing diplomats, scientists, and officials from both worlds, all eager to be part of history. Alan's life had changed completely. As the human who had saved Princess Lyra, he was now a key figure in the growing alliance. The medical bay was busier than ever as human and Zephyrian doctors exchanged knowledge. Your heart rate is elevated again, Linda said as she checked Alan's vital signs. You need to rest. Alan waved away her concern. I'm fine, just busy. But the truth was more complicated. Ever since the breath-sharing, he had felt different. Sometimes he would suddenly know that Princess Lyra was nearby before seeing her. Other times he would feel emotions that didn't seem to be his own. Flashes of curiosity or wonder that came from nowhere. The princess had remained on the horizon, officially as her people's ambassador. She had requested quarters near the medical bay, where she spent hours learning about human physiology and sharing knowledge of her own species. That evening, Alan sat alone in his office, reviewing patient files. A strange feeling made him look up, a sudden awareness that something wasn't right. He checked the time. Nearly midnight by ship's clock. His computer beeped with an incoming message. The sender was unlisted, which was unusual for the ship's secure system. Alan opened it cautiously. The message contained only 4 words. Check medical file access. Frowning, Alan pulled up the system logs. His security clearance as chief medical officer let him see who had accessed which files. What? He found made his blood run cold. Someone had been accessing Princess Lyra's medical data repeatedly over the past 3 days. The access code belonged to a high-level Earth military account he didn't recognize. Computer, identify access code, Emil 7729, Omega, he said. Access code belongs to General Frank Howard, Earth Defense Force, the computer replied. Alan's frown deepened. General Howard wasn't part of the diplomatic team. What was his interest in the princess's medical data? There was a soft knock at his door. Alan quickly closed the files. Come in. The door slid open to reveal Princess Lyra. She wore a simple Zephyrian robe rather than her formal attire. Without her royal symbols, she looked younger, more vulnerable. You are troubled, she said. Her English had improved rapidly with the help of the translators. She still had an unusual accent, her words flowing like water. How did you know? Alan asked, then remembered their connection. You felt it, didn't you? She nodded, her scales shimmering in the dim light. Since you shared your breath with me, I have become aware of your stronger emotions. She moved closer. Something is wrong. I can feel your worry. Alan hesitated. He didn't want to alarm her, but the unusual access to her medical data concerned him. It's probably nothing, he said. Just some unusual activity in our computer system. The princess's multifaceted eyes studied him. You are not telling me everything. Before Alan could respond, his communication device beeped. It was Kelly Wright, the science officer. Dr. Rogers, could you come to the lab right away? There's something you need to see. Alan glanced at Lyra. I have to go. I will. Come with you, she said firmly. It wasn't a request. 10 minutes later, they entered the science lab where Kelly and communications specialist Dwayne Collins were huddled over a computer terminal. Both looked up in surprise when they saw the princess. It's okay, Alan said. She knows something's wrong. What did you find? Kelly turned the screen so they could see. I've been analyzing the radiation field that damaged the Zephyrian ship. It wasn't natural. The pattern is too regular. Meaning what? Alan asked. Someone created it, Dwayne explained. It was designed specifically to affect Zephyrian technology. The princess stepped forward, her scales darkening with what Alan had learned was anger or concern. You believe my ship was attacked? Not necessarily, Kelly said quickly. But the radiation field was artificial, and now, she hesitated. Show them the rest, Dwayne urged. Kelly pulled up another file. I found unusual access patterns in our database. Someone has been downloading all our data on the Zephyrian ship's vulnerabilities, and they've been accessing the princess's medical scans repeatedly. Alan felt a chill. General Howard. You know who did this? Kelly asked, surprised. I found the same thing in the medical files, Alan explained. The access code belongs to General Howard of Earth Defense. Who is this general? Princess Lyra asked, her voice tight. He's a high-ranking military officer, Dwayne explained. Known for his aggressive stance on alien contact. Alan's mind raced. Why would he want your medical data and information about your ship's weaknesses? The princess's eyes widened. To find our vulnerabilities. A sudden realization hit Alan. The radiation field that disabled your ship, it affected your life support systems first. Your people nearly suffocated. And now they have detailed scans of my respiratory system, Lyra said, understanding dawning in her voice. They want to weaponize it, Kelly whispered, horror evident in her voice. They think they've found the Zephyrian's weakness, a way to target your species specifically. Alan felt sick. While diplomats talked peace, someone was planning for war. Even worse, they were using his medical scans, data he had collected to heal, as the basis for a weapon. Just then, Lyra gasped and pressed a hand to her temple. Something is happening, she said. I can feel danger. Alan started to ask what she meant when the ship's alarm began blaring. Captain Bennett's voice came over the intercom. Security alert. Unauthorized access detected in engineering section. All personnel return to stations. The Zephyrian ship, Lyra said urgently. We must check on it. They rushed to the nearest viewport. The crystal vessel still floated peacefully alongside the horizon, its blue glow steady and bright. Then, without warning, a small shuttle launched from the horizon's lower bay, not heading toward Earth, but directly toward the Zephyrian ship. That's not a scheduled departure, Dwayne said, checking the flight logs. Alan felt a wave of panic that wasn't entirely his own. Beside him, Princess Lyra's scales had paled to a light blue. They're going to my ship, she said, to steal our technology. Or sabotage it, Kelly added grimly, if they found a way to recreate that radiation field. Alan made a quick decision. Kelly, alert the captain. Dwayne, track that shuttle. Princess, we need to warn your people. He turned to Lyra. Can you use our connection? Can you sense your father or anyone else on your ship? The princess closed her eyes, concentrating. Yes, faintly. My father is there. Try to warn him, Alan said. Meanwhile, we'll use the normal channels too. As Kelly contacted the bridge, Alan watched the unauthorized shuttle draw closer to the Zephyrian vessel. He knew that what happened in the next few minutes would determine whether this first contact led to friendship or became the opening move in an interspecies war. The tension in the control room of Horizon was palpable. Alan's heart raced as he watched the shuttle approach the Zephyrian ship. He could sense the panic growing around him, but he tried to keep his focus. There was too much at stake. Shuttles, on course, Dwayne said, his voice tense. They're still not responding to hails. Damn it, Alan muttered. He turned to Lyra, whose eyes were now closed in concentration, her fingers pressed against the glass as though trying to reach her people across the void. I can't reach them, she said, her voice strained. The distance is too great. But I know they're in danger. We need to act fast, Alan said, clenching his fists. Kelly, has the captain responded? Kelly nodded, her fingers flying over the control panel. Captain Bennett says the security team is on standby, but they're waiting for confirmation before acting. Alan felt the anger bubbling up inside him. He didn't have time to wait for official orders. They had to stop that shuttle before it reached the Zephyrian ship, or it might be too late. Lyra, Alan said urgently, turning to her. We need to get to the shuttle bay now. She nodded without hesitation, her feet already moving toward the door. Alan followed closely behind her, Kelly and Dwayne close on their heels. As they entered the shuttle bay, Alan felt a sense of urgency wash over him. The small shuttle was just about to dock with the Zephyrian ship. He could see it clearly through the bay's viewport, hovering with unnatural calm as though everything was perfectly normal. But Alan knew better. They can't be allowed to board, Alan muttered. I'll handle the communications, Dwayne said, already heading toward a terminal. Lyra's voice interrupted him. The shuttle, its signature has changed, they've masked it. Can we track it? Kelly asked. I'm trying, Dwayne said, but they've scrambled it too well. Alan turned back toward the shuttle bay doors, clenching his fists. They had to act. Now. I'll board the shuttle myself, Alan said, determination in his voice. Once I'm inside, I can override their systems and take control. What are you going to do when you're inside? Kelly asked, concern in her voice. Whatever it takes, Alan replied, his tone resolute. Inside the shuttle, the air felt thick with tension. The shuttle was small, barely capable of holding a handful of passengers. Alan's heart pounded in his chest as he strapped into the pilot's seat. The controls flickered to life, showing various readings from the ship's systems. But nothing out of the ordinary. However, Alan's gut told him this was too easy. Shuttle requesting clearance to board, Alan said, his voice steady, though his mind was racing. There was no response from the comms. This wasn't right. The silence, the lack of any kind of response from the ship, it was all too calculated. Alan toggled the comm system. This is Dr. Alan Rogers aboard Shuttle 7. I've boarded to investigate unauthorized activity. I repeat, I need immediate clearance to land. Nothing. Lyra, can you sense anything? Alan asked, his words sharp with urgency. She closed her eyes. Something is wrong. I feel anger. Anger directed at you, at us. The sudden realization struck him hard. They're not just stealing our tech, they're using the shuttle as a diversion. A chill ran down Alan's spine as his fingers worked quickly to override the shuttle's controls. Something in the air felt off. He knew they were being watched, and worse, they were being hunted. The door to the shuttle opened and Alan's heart skipped a beat. Standing before him was a man he didn't recognize, dressed in Earth military garb. He didn't need to ask. This was General Howard. Well done, Dr. Rogers, Howard said with a mocking smile. I didn't expect you to be the one to stop this. You've done the hard work for me. Alan's blood ran cold. He didn't have time for this. What do you want? Alan demanded, standing tall despite the panic creeping up his spine. Howard chuckled. What I want, Dr. Rogers, is simple. Control. And you've been helping us more than you know. All of you. He stepped forward, clearly unfazed by Alan's angry stance. Alan's hand hovered over the shuttle's emergency override controls, his mind racing. He couldn't let Howard hijack the situation. He couldn't let anyone get their hands on the Zephyrian's technology. You're making a big mistake, Alan said through clenched teeth, his thoughts racing faster than he could form words. If you take this ship, the peace talks are over. You'll never have the Zephyrians on your side. They'll fight. Howard didn't flinch. We'll fight if we have to. But peace, for now, is a tool. And once we have their tech, their power will be ours. In one fluid motion, Alan leapt forward, slamming his hand on the shuttle's control panel. At the same time, he triggered the internal locking system to trap Howard inside. Lockdown engaged, the shuttle's systems announced. Howard's eyes narrowed, but he didn't move immediately. You can't stop us, Rogers. We're already too far along. But Alan wasn't listening. His heart pounded in his chest as he fought against Howard's control over the shuttle's systems. You won't get away with this, Alan muttered under his breath. As he fought for control, Alan could feel something inside him, some connection to Lyra, to the strange new abilities he was still learning to understand. He knew he wasn't alone in this. Lyra, he whispered as he connected mentally to her, we need to warn your people now. We need to stop Howard before he gets what he came for. Lyra's voice rang clear and sharp in his mind. I will not let them take what is ours. Alan could feel the strength in her words, and it pushed him forward. With one final push, he disengaged the shuttle's stolen command codes. The small shuttle jerked to a halt, its engines powering down in a series of quiet beeps. Howard cursed under his breath, but it was too late. Alan stood tall, his fists clenched, ready to face whatever came next.